Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, why is Hanna Barbera at the Norman Rockwell Museum? You know, they don't get the connection. And so I see Hanna and Barbera as really carrying forward the tradition that Norman Rockwell had of illustration, kind of art for the American people, basically, for the common man.
William Hanna and Joseph Barbera met at MGM Studios in the late 1930s. After several unsuccessful pitches, MGM greenlit Puss Gets the Boot, which earned the studio an Academy Award nomination and launched Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry went on to earn a total of 7 Academy Awards and made Tom and Jerry household names. Despite Hanna and Barbera's theatrical successes, MGM closed their animation studio in 1957. Hanna and Barbera had to find a new way to share their cartoons with the world.
Every major animation person in the industry who were working for the movie studios started to get fired in the mid-50s because movie studios had lost interest in running short cartoons before movies. There was no business interest then. Everything had moved to television. And all of these now iconic, creative people had been thrown out onto the street with nothing to do, even though they had literally invented an industry from scratch.
For a 7-minute short on film, you had a budget of about $45,000. But for television, they were only allowed about $3,000. So they had to figure out how to do that through limited animation, cutting corners, to do the best job they could. But they were lucky in that since all the animation studios had closed, they were really able to hire the best and the brightest in the business.
Bill and Joe, like a number of the other people in the industry, had a little bit of that entrepreneurial juice. They were young enough that they had families to support. They had a lifetime in front of them. And they made a deal with an actor called George Sidney, set up a little office in the Charlie Chaplin studio lot in Hollywood, and came up with their first cartoon, Rough and Ready. They went on from there to the Huckleberry Hound Show, Yogi Bear, Quick Draw McGraw.
They had Wally Gator, McGill and Gorilla, The Secret Squirrel and Adam Ant.
But their most dazzling success was on the horizon.
In 1960, they realized that 40% of the audience for shows like Huckleberry Hound were actually adults. And so they decided to do a primetime series, which became the Flintstones. The Flintstones was enormously popular, so the next year they followed that with Top Cat. And the following year, they followed that with the Jetsons, which was a space-age take on the Flintstones, essentially.
All sorts of unbelievable properties that set the world on fire and turned Hollywood cartoons upside down.
And in 1964, their audience was getting older, tastes were changing in culture, James Bond and spies were popular, we had the Cold War, so they decided to do more action-adventure-oriented cartoons. Their first one from that was Johnny Quest, which was a primetime show in 1964. From that, they went to do Space Ghost, Frankenstein Jr., the Herculoids. While those shows were enormously popular, 2 years later, because of public pressure, they were all off the air. So Hanna-Barbera were forced to come up with new material that was lighter, fluffier fare, that wasn't as offensive.
In 1980, NBC considered canceling Saturday morning cartoons. But Hanna-Barbera began developing a show that would revolutionize TV animation once again.
NBC had made a decision in 1980 to stop Saturday morning cartoons, and Hanna-Barbera approached them with this idea for the Smurfs, which kept Saturday morning cartoons on NBC for the next 10 years at least.
By the end of the 1980s, Hanna-Barbera had amassed a library of unforgettable characters, funny and exciting stories, and a treasure trove of animation.
In 1991, Ted Turner came along with the idea of creating a 24-hour cartoon network, and he hired a man to lead the Cartoon Network by the name of Fred Seibert, who had helped get MTV off the ground and helped to rebrand Nickelodeon and really had a really great track record.
The kind of work that I did, commercial cartoons, weren't necessarily really thought of as museum-worthy in any way. I was not only excited about the exhibit, I was excited that such a place like the Norman Rockwell would pay attention to this great piece of American culture that I really felt like maybe our day really has come for our industry. You reached out to me and told me about this. My first reaction was, it's about time. And all during my time at Hanna Barbera and now at Frederator, I have struggled with the idea that our industries don't take animation seriously. And I have said over and over again that I thought that Joe and Bill were among the greatest film comedians in history. And people don't laugh with me, they laugh at me when I say that. So the idea that you have curated this show and have taken this stuff as seriously as the great Norman Rockwell stuff that is here, hallelujah, beat the band, it's about time. I think it's fantastic.
So in planning the Hanna-Barbera show, I had really anticipated a lot of kids would come to the show, and as it turns out, it's really a lot of people, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who are bringing their kids, bringing their grandkids. So we're really covering all ages, and the attendance for the show has been amazing. With Hanna-Barbera, their philosophy was just to create fun shows that would make people smile. And, what better place to have a show like that than at the Norman Rockwell Museum?